Welcome to the Christian Car Guy Radio Show.
I say this calls for action, and now.
Thank you, Lord, for giving me a mother rooted strong in thee. She taught my hands to fold in prayer and trust your presence everywhere.
We'll roll on and on to the summer evening sun, where the day's twice as long. We'll have fun. And you can call, yeah, we'll conquer it all. Together dreams become reality on the road trip to
the mother of road trips today on the Christian Car Guy Show. Does that sound fun? It sounds fun to me, I can assure you. My family, we certainly did a phenomenal amount of road trips. And when I think of my mother, this Mother's Day coming up tomorrow, it's Mother's Day Eve, which is a very biblical concept. If you think of Eve and mother at the same time, you can't help but go, well, Mother's Day Eve. I've got to do this show on Mother's Day Eve for 20 years. And so I wonder if you knew that the mother of road trips, actually, this is a true statement, Bertha Benz, right? Absolutely a beautiful woman. I mean, a phenomenally beautiful woman, was the wife of Carl Benz, and most people would credit him with inventing the automobile, but without Bertha, there would have been no Mercedes-Benz. There never would have been a Benz. And so what happened was she was actually very wealthy, and she had 5 children. So she certainly was a mother with Carl, but she helped him develop that first motor car, which was in about 1888. And when they had developed this car without her husband's knowledge, fascinatingly, I love this story, she decides to go visit her mother, which was 66 miles away. And of course, the car had never been road tested like anything like that. And there were no gas stations that you were going to stop along the way. So Bertha took off on a trip that would take her and her 2 sons. She took her 2 oldest teenage sons with her on the first road trip. It was 66 miles. It took them 12 hours. But some of the reasons it took them that long, the car would go about, what they say, 20 kilometers an hour. So what is that, maybe 15 or so? The car would go that fast, but, where do you get gas? And she had to stop at pharmacies along the way that sold the cleaning solution that they used for fuel in those days on the internal combustion engine. And on top of that, kind of neat, the engine stopped along the way, and she used a hat pin to unclog her fuel line. Resourceful woman. And the brakes, which, if you remember, wagons, horse and wagons, buggies, the way that they used brakes in those days, there was like a wooden block that went up against the wheel, and that wasn't working so good in her car. And so she stopped along the way and made the first brake linings, put leather on those wooden blocks so that the car would stop a lot smoother. And you can see that we are now enjoying these road trips that we do because of people like Bertha Benz. And when I thought about Bertha and her 12-hour trip with her 2 sons, I couldn't help but wonder, did they sing? That's a long trip to be in a car, which it was a convertible by all means. So they're out in the open air. But did they sing songs, Did they play I Spy? Because they couldn't play the alphabet game. They couldn't play the license plate game, Nick. They were stuck on that one. Not a lot of license plates in those days and no billboards to look at. So they had to play I Spy or something. What was a road trip like back in 1888 or Morley? What was a road trip like in your family? I loved them. My mother was the queen of, a bicycle built for 2, or She'll Be Coming Around the Mountain, or those songs like that. What was a road trip? Did you play games? Maybe you're the younger, I know my kids would say, well, we would watch movies, on the VCR that was in the vans that my dad had for demonstrators and stuff like that. What was a road trip like for you? 866-348 7884, 866-348-7884. The number to call in, and we would love to hear your road trip. We got, of course, RK in the garage coming up with his story of his, back in the 20s or 30s. I'm anxious to know because he's 89, so he has a different memory of road trips. And I also can remember my grandmother's stories of road trips with her husband and how they used to go camping, which was, apparently a very common thing because back then they didn't have, if you went back in the 20s or, around the turn of the century, they didn't have motels either because motels comes from the idea of motoring. And so, it was a matter of finding some place to camp along the way. And I suppose that there's some people out there might even remember horse and buggy road trips. What was that like? I used to have a friend, Miss Beck, who actually grew up in the area of horse and buggy road trips, and she told me about it. We would love to know yours. 866-348-7884. And it made me, this week I was studying this idea of motherhood, and I couldn't help but note that, as we talked about last week, that there was a mother involved in the birth of Cain and Abel, right? And her name was Eve. And I don't know if you ever noticed that what Eve may have thought when Cain was born, because the prophecy that she heard after she sinned in the garden, with Adam and God cursed her, she was also got to overhear the cursing that he gave to Satan. And the curse was this, that, her seed would essentially bruise your head and you would bruise his heel. So she knew that there was going to be a seed. She knew because, she obviously had seen trees growing and things like that came from seed, that there was going to be some type of birth, and that seed would break the head of Satan, which she knew all too well at this point in time had caused her undoing. And so as they exited the garden, I know her hope had to be that she would have this seed. And so when Cain was born, you can imagine her excitement about going on road trips with Cain, because she felt like that could be her way out, which would have a lot to do with why she named him Cain, as we talked about last week. But we got Daryl is in Utah. We would love to hear Daryl's stories about your road trips. Daryl, you're on the Christian Car Guy Show.
Good morning.
Good morning.
We always camp. I was born in 63, and we'd go fishing and do different things, but we'd go out and about 300 miles away and visit my grandma. And when the mileage, when Jimmy Carter cut it down to 50 miles an hour, 55 miles an hour.
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness. I can remember it took so long. I was like, oh, no, because it dropped from 70 to, 55, and it seemed like it took forever.
It had to add another hour and a half to that trip to your grandmother. Yeah.
My dad had a 66 Ford with an AM radio, and he'd let me play at the radio a little bit, but all we got was static,
Well,
and,
were you driving in the mountains in Utah?
Yeah, and so we'd just look out the window, and, if you saw a deer or something, you'd say, look, I saw a deer or whatever. And then we'd find a place to camp and camp and hopefully by a river and go fishing and then continue our trip the next day, But, it took for a long time when they dropped the speed limit down,
How fun is that, though, right? Aren't those precious memories of being with your family sort of in this close, like you're a captive audience, right? To, what your mom and dad want. And did your mom make something good for those camping trips to eat?
She'd always make something. We'd always have cookies or something, something to munch along the way, and then we'd, set up camp, and she'd make a meal,
That's beautiful. Absolutely wonderful memories.
Well, yeah, it is. But I remember that when the mileage dropped down, and that sticked in my mind, and that I used to think, oh, goodness, it takes so long. by then I was about 10 years old, 11 years old, and I was like, hurry.
Well, what's funny about that, I remember it vividly too, in that was the year I went to college, and I had to drive from Albuquerque to Dallas.
Oh, God.
And so, what would have been a 5.5 hour trip all of a sudden was an 8 hour. It made a huge impact. The good news is we got good gas mileage while we were doing it, Daryl. So I appreciate your call so much. We got to go to a break. God bless you there in Utah. We would love to hear your road trip stories. 866-348-7884. 866-348-7884.
You're listening to the Truth Network and truthnetwork.com.
Thank you, Lord, for giving me a mother rooted strong in thee. She taught my hands to fold in prayer and trust your presence everywhere.
The mother of all road trips today on the Christian Car Guy Radio Show. We would love to hear your memories of road trips with your mother. Maybe you're still making those memories. We would love to hear it. 866-348-7884. 866-348-7884. And certainly I was blessed to have a mother like that. And I know that Nick does over here, our producer. We're going to talk to him about his mother's road trip. So it wasn't long ago you guys were on a road trip, right?
Yeah, we sure were. We went to Pennsylvania. Yeah, it was a good road trip for sure.
And so when you think of road trips with your mom, Nick,
Yeah.
what do you think?
Ah, man. Honestly, one thing that comes to my mind, at least when we were growing up, was, and it's so random, was the smell of brakes of 18-wheeler. How they
Oh yeah, when you're going down the mountain.
When you're going down the mountain, exactly. Because when we were going up the mountain, or down the mountain, however you want to put it, there was a 18-wheeler in front of us, and then it put on its brakes, and there was just so much smoke, and we just inhaled it all. It was thick, but we ended up getting around.
You could appreciate Bertha trying to stop that car with her two boys with those wooden brake shoes. I mean, them things were like the Holland version of.
Yeah. But,
that is so awesome.
Yeah. But another thing that comes to mind is just we like to talk about. We like to sometimes reminisce on the past and be like, oh, remember that time? Me, my cousin, and my grandmother, we went on a road trip as well, and we talked about how this one time we were playing the name game, not the name game, the alphabet game,
right? And
we had to go around, and whoever breaks first, and so it was A, B, C, and it got to me, and my letter was R, and I'm thinking R, what can I say? R, arg. Arg, like the pirate. And for some reason that has always stuck. And it was just a random moment, but it's those times where we talk about the past just on the road that really makes us.
Right, it's an intimate setting, and it creates an intimate memory that those things, they stick with you. And we would love to hear yours. That's why I want you to call us. 866-348-7884 is the number to call in and share your road trip with your mother. What that might have been like in those things that you remember well, or camping trips and all those kind of things. 866-348-7884. So we were talking about the situation with mothers in the Bible. And certainly, I'm sure that Cain and his mother Eve, when you think about it, since it's Mother's Day Eve, they may have been on a road trip or two. But unfortunately, Cain kind of turned away from God. And he walked, literally, after he killed his brother, he walked away from God. And it's an unbelievably sad thing. The good news for Eve is she also had Seth. And Seth had a different path. And we all are certainly related to Seth. I don't know if you've given that much thought, but everybody that came out of Noah, because Noah is related to Seth, and so we all have that mom in common. But there's another mom, if you know Christ, that's very much involved. And I don't know if you've ever noticed how God used the story in John chapter 2 to describe a little bit about Cain and Jesus' mother. And so if we read John chapter 2, I want you to note some things that maybe you hadn't seen before. But it says, on the third day there was a wedding in Cana of Galilee. Do you think that's a coincidence that it was named Cana? Do you think that it had to do with a wedding? And the idea that eventually, obviously, we're all going to be married to Jesus, and as we're the bride of Christ in so many different ways. But the fact that this was on the third day is really spectacular. If you know a couple other little details, like usually Jewish weddings happen on Tuesdays for the very reason that God, when he made the world, on the third day, right, is when he separated the waters and the land. Like you would be separated from your family as you get married into a new thing, right? And then after that separation, God's glory was revealed through the land and the trees and the grass, and the first fruit came also on the third day. And you might also note, and one of the big reasons that Jewish people do get married on Tuesdays is because that's the day that God said good twice. He said it was good when he separated the land and the water, and he also said it was good when he made the trees and the fruit and all those kind of things. And so it's kind of fascinating that this too happened on the third day in Cana. And that word Cana is very much the word. It was named after the word that Eve used when Cain was born. Again, Eve was terribly excited because she thought that this was going to be the end of the curse. Well, Seth would end up being that, but through his line. But it doesn't change the fact that Eve was really looking towards a man that would be born, the seed that would break this curse. And so if you've ever wondered why Jesus, listen to the John chapter 2 again, to listen to how Jesus refers to his mother. He doesn't call her mom here. He says, now both Jesus and his disciples were invited to the wedding, and when they ran out of wine, the mother of Jesus said to him, they have no wine. So Jesus said to her, woman, what does this concern have to do with me? My hour has not yet come. So I don't know if you ever had considered why Jesus used that word, because there was a separation that was happening here. He was going from being her son to being the Messiah. And he uses that word again on the cross when he says, mother, behold your son, to John. Because to an extent, Mary represented the mother that would change everything, just like the mother of the seed that would in fact break the head of Satan. And unlike Eve, she did what God asked her to do, right? She said, unto the Lord, do unto me as you wish, and again, she followed God. And there was a remarkable difference in how much Jesus obviously, had this relationship. But at this point in time, he doesn't call her mom, he says woman. But then his mother says some of the wonderfulest words ever spoken. Whatever he says to you, do. Like, what a great word from a mom to tell us that whatever Jesus tells us to do, do. I mean, that's amazing. We're going to have RK in the garage. We got plenty of time for your stories. 866-348-7884. We'll be right back.
You're listening to the Truth Network and truthnetwork.com.
We'll roll on and on to the summer evening sun, where the days are twice as long. We'll have fun. And you can call, yeah, we'll conquer it all. Together dreams become reality on the road trip to
the mother of all road trips today on the Christian Car Guy Show. Everything from Bertha Benz and her original trip in her the original motor car, 66 miles in 12 hours, to Adam and Eve and Mary. We've gone everywhere, but now we're going to go in the garage with RK. So speaking of RK, and now time for the legendary garage of RK, 88 and still full throttle. I got to update that, RK. It's 89 now, and you certainly are full throttle. And so when we think about mothers and road trips, let's see, 90 years ago, was it like 19, 20, 30?
No, 19, in the 40s.
In the 40s, okay.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning.
Yeah.
Well, I have one if you want me to tell you about
I definitely do.
Okay, this is, I was born in 37, my sister was 35, and my brother 39. My dad worked for General Motors, and we had a 32 Chevrolet 5-window coupe with a rumble seat. I remember it being black, and it also had freewheeling, Robbie.
So when you say 5 windows, let's. So that means...
you got the two, what they call the 5 windows, the 2 doors, then a little window behind them, and then a rear window.
Okay.
That's a 5-window coupe.
All right.
And it had a rumble seat. Now the rumble seat, if you look at these 32s, they just took the deck, the trunk lid, and turned it around, and it opened from the top and went back, and it had a seat there. And then you had some room between there and the driver's side, driver and passenger up front. It went through there. And I never forget, we took a road trip to Niagara Falls.
Wow.
And it rained 4 or 5 times. It rained a lot. So we had to close the rumble seat, and we were in between the passenger and the driver, in between that cubbyhole back there. It went through to the seat, to the rumble seat. So we had room because, well, we were small kids. I mean, that at that time. So I remember it distinctly because my sister was born in 44, and there was only 3 of us. So it had to be in 43 or 44 or 40. Anyway, the funny part about it is the whole road trip, we got to Niagara Falls, and being my mother born in England, she didn't bring any papers with us. So she could not go across and look at the falls from the Canadian side, or they wouldn't let her back in. So she had to stay in the motel or hotel where we were, I remember. And the 3 of us and my dad went over to look at the falls from the other side. And that was the funniest part about it. I couldn't understand it, why she couldn't go back at that time. And I remember being paperwork later on.
I did not know your mother was from England.
I had a problem. I didn't have a problem growing up. Everybody would call looking for me when the phone was there. And they said, "Oh, Richard's got an English maid." And they would tell me, "Oh, I didn't know you had a maid." I'm saying, "What do you mean a maid?" She said, "Well, the person answered the phone is English." I said, "That's my mother." That was great. I distinctly remember that. That's more than 80 years ago, because that probably was, 5?
I had never thought about what do you do with a rumble seat when it's raining. Hopefully they're little kids like you're talking about. And the rumble seat still faced forward though, right?
Yes. Yeah, and the rear window back then, you could open it. The rear coupe window, you could open it and slide it open, which is odd because they do that today with the trucks and stuff like that. And it was unique. And
so
of course,
you could talk to the people in the car from being back there in the rumble seat.
Yes.
Before it was raining and you had to climb up in.
The 5-window coupe, see, only the 3-window coupe doesn't have extended windows, didn't have the rumble seat because I guess they figured out we better put some space between the driver and the passenger to the rumble seat if people want to, hang out in there. Well, you couldn't do it. You couldn't do it today, but
my father worked for General Motors too. That's an amazing coincidence, isn't it? And we had in the early '60s, the station wagons, the seats faced backwards.
Yes.
And so
Yep.
we were looking where we
68.
went.
68, please. Yeah.
And I remember many a road trip sitting back there in those seats, facing the wrong way, which kind of made you a little bit car sick if you're a little kid.
Yeah.
was going away. But anyway, those were, and we had the Sky Vista wagons. When you said 5 windows, those cars, I don't know if you remember,
They had windows in the roof.
they had 2. Yeah, they were like a sunroof, but they were called Vista because they had trains back then that were Vista cruisers, and so they put those 2, and we just thought that was the coolest thing, man.
Yeah,
that
cool.
was like sitting.
Yeah, that was cool. that was Oldsmobile.
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna have you hang on, Arcade. We got Sovo in Thomasville. She's got a story for us about her mom. I can hardly wait to hear Sovo. I hadn't heard talk to you in a while.
Good morning to you, dear.
Oh, good morning. Good morning. So what have you got for us?
It's not really a road trip, but I could tie it into it. I wanted to give a big shout out to you and your ministry with the Christian Car Guy. You've got a wonderful man named Scott that's on top of his game. He prays for me. He just has been such a blessing to me. And then there's another guy, Matthew. I've not met him yet, but he's still got my 98 Honda because I've been in the hospital. Can't go get it yet.
Oh, I didn't know that.
But your tow guy, Terry Inman.
Oh, yeah.
With TWI, top of the line. He does such good work, and I just wanted to give a shout out. And
Yeah.
I do have ideas for the Christian family on how to promote this for Terry with the TWI Motors. They need to be on his Facebook page, and they need to make a DIY and keep it on their key ring of his telephone number for towing, and put one in the automobile book in the glove compartment, and keep him as a contact in the telephone on your cell phone.
Yeah, we always promote that, Sovo. It's a beautiful thing that everybody in your family needs to know, gee, who you're going to call when this happens. And like you say.
Exactly.
And again, what Sovo is referring to is the Jesus Labor Love, which is the ministry of the Christian Car Guy Show. It in itself is its own 501c3. And the Jesus Labor Love is car repair help for single moms, widows, and families in crisis. And we're so grateful for you calling and a chance to help, right? And pray with people. And like you say, Scott is an amazing volunteer for that. Terry does his wrecker service. But interestingly, I don't know if you know this, Sovo, but Ray's Body Shop and Wrecker Service, they have towed for us since the very beginning, towed. So we have a real blessing that we have so many that have participated in that program with us.
I did not know about the rest of them, but I was very impressed with Terry.
Yeah, he is a wonderful Christian man, as is Jerry Mathis with Ray's Body Shop and Wrecker Service. So that's a great shout out, Sova. I really appreciate it. How about your mom? Anything you can say there?
She's in heaven with Jesus, but she took us on a lot of road trips going down in the backwood countries of Virginia. They were brave enough to take all 6 of us to the beach for the first time. That was a trip.
Do you remember much about the trip?
Mom said I'll never do it again.
Yeah, we were 4 kids in a station wagon with my mom, but my mom, she had so many different activities that she had lined up, but she still heard those famous words, "Are we there yet? When are we going to get there?" Thank you, Miss Sova. RK, stay with us, and we'll be right back with your calls. 866-348-7884. 866-348-7884.
You're listening to the Truth Network and truthnetwork.com.
Thank you, Lord, for giving me a mother rooted strong in thee. She taught my hands to fold in prayer and trust your presence everywhere.
So, RK, I'm dying to know. My mother certainly taught me how to fold my hands in prayer, and I can remember those prayers at bedtime. Did your mother do that? RK?
Sometimes in the evening, going to bed.
Yeah.
But not always. But we always, we made sure that we always went to church. Get up in the Sunday morning and went to church and had the Sunday school classes, you know. But no, Ma, I don't recall that. But too much, Robbie. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. I was when I heard that song, I couldn't help but remember how tender.
That's beautiful. Yeah.
My mother was about that kind of thing. But you know that I got to be honest. That she taught us this prayer. It used to always scare me. Now I lay me down to sleep. I pray the Lord my soul to keep. If I should die, what the heck?
I say that every night, Robbie. I say that little prayer every night.
Still good. And do you remember who taught it to you?
My mother.
Yeah.
My mother.
Yeah, and that's a neat thing. And so I am fascinated by the fact that your mother was English.
She went back to the Carnation in '52. I remember that. Then in '76, I took her back in Bicentennial, and we spent 2 weeks in England with her, visiting her siblings and out there. But she was one of 3 girls. She was the middle girl.
So how did your father meet her?
Oh, I'm not going to tell you. This is something else you can't believe. She came over at 28 or 27, somewhere around there, I think. And she got stuck in Torrey Corner in West Orange, New Jersey. And she was looking for somebody to help her out. And my father came to rescue her.
There you go. And the rest?
Ever since, so it's cars. I can't believe it. How you met your wife?
Yeah. Believe me, I met my wife as a result of the car business. I know you met at least
Marianne the same way.
Right.
Yeah.
The same thing. So, you know, it's beautiful. And so did you know that about Bertha Benz, that she actually took the first motor car on this 66-mile adventure without her husband knowing it?
No, but when you told me about it this morning, I told my daughter, she said, well, look it up, Richard, her dad. So she looked it up and came up with the information, you know, about her. I did not know that, sir.
And
what was the name of the car?
It was called a motor wagon.
A motor what?
Wagon. Just like a Volkswagen. Only it was called German. A motor wagon. Right.
Oh, wow. 5 kids?
5 kids. And it was her money, because she was wealthy and she used her dowry to help fund the whole project. And it's an amazing thing. If you look on YouTube, actually, you can see the car. There's a guy that drives around in one of the cars, and it was belt driven, had a fascinating clutch system that it worked. It was easier to drive than anything you ever saw in your life. A whole lot easier than Model A, I can assure you that. And you just spun this. It was 1 cylinder. It was 1 liter. It had a little less than a horsepower, but they spun this giant flywheel to start it, and off
it going.
And off it went. And she took her 2 boys, and the bravery of the thing, and of course everybody thought she was a witch going down the road, because what is this thing going down the road?
What was this machine coming at us, right?
Right, they'd never seen anything like it. But it's a fascinating story. But it was a woman, right? Somebody's mother that invented the first windshield wiper. And
no,
it was.
Yeah.
It was. And women designers really made a huge impact on the automobile business, just so you'll know, since we're talking about mothers, that the Ford Taurus, right, which almost saved, like the K-car kind of saved Chrysler, Ford Taurus kind of saved Ford. And one of the chief designers in that car was a woman. Sure enough.
Wow.
And General Motors had a whole group of them they called the Damsels of Design.
Danville for design. Okay.
The damsels of design, right? And a lot of the old General Motors, remember they used to have those prototype cars they would travel around in. I'm trying to think of what it was called. But I got to see them, and my dad would take us on the road to go see that stuff. I bet your dad did too. But those are things that I think are a blessing in our memories, that motherhood is so close to this idea of turning towards home. Because when you think of home, you think of your mother. And because there's this whole thing that mothers give life, just like God does. Yeah. And so, when Eve had that first baby, away we go. It did come down to Seth that we got the one that followed God, but at least she kept having them. we wouldn't be here today, right? So
that's for sure.
That's amazing stuff. So with the last couple of minutes we got, RK, we probably should hand out some advice to mothers, something that they ought to keep in mind in when they're driving around today or on their next road trip. What would you suggest?
I watched my mother drive, and the biggest thing I had the problem was stoplights. Please pay attention to those stoplights, because the other guy is wanting to go across the way, and he'll jump the light, and you go through, you have a problem. That's the biggest thing that I've seen.
Oh, you're right. And another thing, right on those lines, is we tell these people, and you probably can't tell it too much, don't turn your wheel. If you're in the left lane and you are stopped at a stoplight, the last thing in the world you want to do is turn your wheels in advance of doing a U-turn or something. So many people are killed every year because people will slam right into the back of you, just like they do me, and they will push you into the oncoming traffic if you have your wheels turned already. And you never know when that's going to happen. And it's you're right.
Pretty good, yeah.
The stoplights are, and
well, I watched my mom. I watched my mom go through three of them on the way home. She was still driving. She lived here 30 years ago with us, and I watched her drive through three lights. I said, "Mom, don't you see the lights?" "Oh, I beat the lights."
Oh. She was going through.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, just so you'll know, the law is that if the light turns red before you get across the intersection, you're in violation.
Yes.
And so don't push the red. I know the yellow light does not mean go faster. It means slow down. Because, it's just you're playing a game of Russian roulette. You really are. And take it from my wife and I, who just spent the last month recovering from an automobile accident. I'm still in this cervical collar because somebody slammed into the back of us, and we're just on the highway, and there was no way of getting out of it. You could be the most defensive driver in the world, but somebody's coming up on you at 65 miles an hour because you're not paying attention to traffic. And a
little story about that. I live out here in the
we only have about another 20 seconds, so go fast.
Okay, I live out here in the boonies, and it's hard to turn left in my driveway. And I would tell my wife, "Watch out for the cars." "Oh, they have to stop." I said, "They don't have to stop."
No, they don't. Well, we got to go.